Welcome back, everyone. Looks like people are kind of still filtering in. I hope you had some good discussions and weren't cut off in mid-sentence when those breakout rooms closed. Looks like we've almost got everyone back. Here they come. Welcome back, everyone. So we wanted to use the remaining time we have to check in and see, one, if any questions kind of emerged in your discussions that we can help you with related to the data or the handouts. And then also, two, to share ideas with one another about ways that you might use these community handouts. It's always nice to hear what other ideas folks have so that you can maybe borrow from their good ideas. So before we do that, I also did want to mention before I forget that if you're interested in scheduling a consultation, an individual consultation with us at WSU to talk more about your handout and your data, we'd be happy to do that. And if you could reach out to your PSM, they'll help coordinate scheduling that if you're interested. So I'll just ask for volunteers to share whether it is a question that came up in your discussion that you think we can help answer, or an idea for how you might use these handouts. It'd be great to hear from a couple folks.
This is Ben Johnson, Mason County, and one of the things our group said is that we really appreciated you guys putting this together because it's very professional. It's something that we can just kind of, put our touch to and make it our own, but it's really just about ready to go for any community presentation we need. It's not really long, it's pretty basic, but really just to start out a meeting and to be able to have some discussion points and some ideas in here. I think it's a great little document. Awesome.
Thanks, Ben. Do you have a specific idea for the audiences you'll share this with?
I mentioned that we're meeting with one of our representatives next week on a different topic, but I think it's going to be a good introduction for that meeting. Probably the first couple of minutes, first few minutes we'll spend on this and talk about why we're there and the issues in North Mason, because this is one of our communities. And then we'll move on, I think, to our
That's great.
Rest of the meeting.
Awesome.
We also said
good timing then. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We also said that it'll be a great tool to use when we're preparing for our key leader events in our communities.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Other ideas for how you might use your handouts and or potential barriers you see? I appreciate the really positive feedback, Ben, that you shared with us, but I imagine too others might have questions or concerns about how they use their data, especially if your data is suppressed. I know that that's come up a couple of times in these sessions that we've had with smaller communities. Any general thoughts on that? Comments?
I did have something in regards to the suppression of data from being in a small rural community. I'm Anasha. I'm from the Goldendale Coalition down here in South Central Washington. And we use a lot of our data information points that we get as a compilation of the 8th through 12th grade, rather than just the singular 10th grade. And we were looking that over a bit and talking about maybe if there was a way to have that put in there as well. And another thing that I was thinking of too is possibly, instead of comparing it to a state data, since we are so small, doing maybe a comparative with the school districts like us data that we have with our HYS as well.
Those are awesome ideas. And so I so appreciate you sharing them with us, because that can also help other communities that are in your same situation. So I would love to follow up with you specifically afterwards so that we can, if we can help support you in maybe adjusting those data points a little bit, we can certainly do that. Yeah, thank you. What else? What else came up in your discussions?
This wasn't in our discussion, but I have a question. Can you explain like what signifies the school districts like us? What makes another district like us?
That's a good question. I can't answer that, Gatanjali. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the school districts like us, or maybe another DBHR representative can answer that, because that's not a data set that we've used for CPWI evaluation, really. That comes from a Healthy Youth Survey, right? If I remember correctly. Do
Yeah,
others
our
have?
results come from the Healthy Youth Survey, and I am very vaguely familiar with school districts like us, but I don't know much information about it. But I'd be happy to look more into it if that means helping communities come up with better data.
So that comes from the data books that we provide to CPWI coalitions. And I believe the best person to talk to from our office about that would be Sandy Salavares, because she sort of handles the data book generation, which I think the data books are actually done by an office at DSHS, I want to say. So I actually don't know what qualifies somebody to be a school district like us, but I do know there is a process. So we could definitely get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I can go ahead and make an ask to Sandy, because that's exactly right, Isaac. Sandy does handle that project. So I will make that ask.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Other thoughts on, like I said, ways to use these handouts that maybe we haven't talked about so far, or other potential barriers you see that we can try to help address? One resource that I shared with the last group, because this topic of being in smaller, more rural communities and how challenging it can be to use some of your quantitative data, or at least you have to think about it a little differently. So the topic of, how do you collect good qualitative data? So, either testimonials or kind of just a broader array of information qualitatively to help support your work. And I mentioned this resource that I recently became familiar with, and it's another group out of WSU. They've developed a technique called ripple effects mapping, and it is more of a qualitative approach to gathering information and documenting kind of the impacts that you have in your coalition work. So I just posted the link in the web or in the chat box, so feel free to check it out. And I mentioned also on the last call, this is a topic that's come up with another group that I work with, the Northwest Prevention Technology Transfer Center. As during the COVID era, especially, we're going to have some limits to the quantitative data that we usually rely on, like for instance, the Healthy Youth Survey isn't getting collected this year, at least not in the same way. So how can we think proactively about tapping other resources, other data sources, both quantitative, but also could this be the opportunity where you really invest in collecting more of that qualitative information from your communities? So there's some discussion at that level as well to perhaps provide some trainings in that area. So I'll keep you updated, let DBHR know that they'll be sure to forward that information on if that ends up happening. Yeah, it looks like Ray posted a little bit more information about the school districts like us also in the chat box if you're interested. Thanks. Anything else we can help with? This is really your time, but we also don't want to just keep you here to keep you here. So I know you all have other things going on, I'm sure. Okay. Not hearing anything, so I'll just re-emphasize again that if you have questions that come up after we leave today, feel free to reach out to us. Contact your PSM if you're interested in scheduling kind of a one-on-one consultation, and we'd be happy to talk to you more about this work. And just really appreciate your time today and hope that this resource is of use to you in your work, and good luck. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye.